You're listening to Tehachapod with Keybudge, Corey Costello, and Greg Garrett.
Tehachapod time once again. Keybudge, Corey Costello. Corey, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Happy to be back.
And you've displaced Ashley, who has sat in as a co-host while you were gone.
Yeah, no, she's not that hard to displace, but she's actually, when she has a much more pleasant voice than I do, so it's a tough act to follow.
Ashley did a great job, and we've had her on as a guest in the past, and Ashley sat in as my co-host, and she got the interviewing skills, and she was using those.
So she messed with all my stuff.
She did, I can tell.
She tagged my notepad, she changed the height of my chair, she changed my headphones. I'm very particular about these things.
Well, she didn't use your headphones. I gave her her own set of headphones. But
I have the in-ear, the pro-style ones. I don't know, that's kind of gross. I don't want to be doing that either.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
But no, those are great shows. I mean, I think with what you all did with the mini pods, and then also getting the project updates with Jay and Don and Ashley, those were great shows. And we were, I was actually on some Tehachapod business, doing a little research and development for Tehachapod and our other communication stuff.
Our future growth.
Yeah, National Association of Broadcasters convention. So just wrap that up. So nice. A lot of great information out there.
And it's nice to have you back. It's nice to have you here on my right-hand side. And today we're going to talk about something. You just brought this to me. I was like, hey, I got a chance to meet a gentleman that is a part of that's out hiking on the PCT. And then you guys have a connection because of something that you did recently. Why don't you go ahead and tell folks about that? Yeah,
so today we have with us Daryl Bolton. He is hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. Specifically, he's hiking the Pacific Crest Trail to raise money for Team World Vision, and that's how we kind of connected. Team World Vision was the same team and group that I ran the LA Marathon with, and will run the New York Marathon for as well. They raise funds to support clean water in developing nations. So they drill wells and create water systems for countries that don't have that, villages, countries all over the world. A lot of us ran the marathon, and then Daryl had another idea to take it the next level and hike the Pacific Crest Trail while raising money for the same cause. So we connected that way. Yesterday, technically, I was his trail angel because got him off the trail. He stayed at my house, cooked him dinner. I thought we should get Daryl on the podcast. So
very cool.
Here it is today.
Daryl Bolton, welcome to Tehachapod.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
And I got to ask you, so did you do marathon also, or is this a different thing that World Vision has these opportunities to go out and raise money for, the needs of building water infrastructure around the world?
Yes, both my wife and I have been running with Team World Vision since 2013, and I started in 2014. We've been running half and full marathons for Team World Vision to raise money for clean water.
You've now added the Pacific Crest Trail as the new venture to explore and raise money for World Vision.
Yes, this was an idea I had several years ago. I've always wanted to hike the PCT because I've never done such a long trail as that. So I thought if I do this, I would like to make it something count and be worthwhile for something. So I'm just continuing on raising money for clean water funding. And so I asked God as I was praying to him, if I do this, what kind of goals should I set? And I feel like he gave me an answer of $100,000 to raise between starting my fundraising last year and continuing on through my hike this year.
It's amazing. That's not only the feat, but also the fundraising goal is a huge number. We talked a little about this before, but just that thought process now. Okay, so you decide to do this, you made the decision, you set the goal, and now you take off from just north of the Mexican border, right? What was that just first few steps like when you realized, okay, I'm really doing this now?
It was good to be off and running because I've been anticipating it for a long time. And so it was just the adventure that I've been waiting to do, and I was glad to get started.
So if you don't mind telling the folks, I mean, how old are you? I mean, you and I talked about the fact that you're seeing people on the trail 30s, 20s. and so this is a later in life venture for you.
Right. I'm 66 right now. The majority of the people I see on the trail are 20s, 30s. Some are my age, but the majority are younger, and I cannot keep up with them. I don't even try anymore. In the past, I probably could have, but not now.
Yeah. So what was the maybe we can explain to people too your journey, because when people hike the PCT, there's different ways to do it, but you are attempting the entire length. So go into that a little bit. What does that whole thing entail?
Some people hike it in sections because doing the entire trail is just too much of an effort to put in all in one season. You have to complete it in one calendar year. I'm just attempting to do it. I don't know if I'll complete it, but with God's help, pray that the end will come.
And you've got to do this based on weather when you leave, knowing what the weather climates are going to be, because what's the trail ends, is it in Canada?
Yes, I started at Campo, California, which is east of San Diego at the Mexican border, and the trail will end near Manning Provincial Park at the border of Canada.
And how many miles is that?
2,650.
Man,
and
that's a lot of marathons.
Yeah, and I've already gone 566 miles.
Okay, so you about about 20%? You got
about that.
Yeah, about 20%.
And weather wise, I mean, you are almost complete with this quote unquote desert section, right? Once you get out of Tehachapi and start getting up into the Kennedy Meadows area, you've completed the desert section. It's been a weird spring, wind, storms. What's the weather situation been like? You haven't had a lot of great days to be out there hiking. There
have been some nice days. There's been a lot of wind. I was delayed a couple of days on one of my planned 0 days when we had a storm over San Jacinto Mountain. There were several inches of snow that fell. Then there was a windstorm 2 to 3 weeks ago north of here near Walker Pass. 102-mile-an-hour gust was recorded. And then there was another storm just within the past week here in the Tehachapi Mountains.
Are those type of days that just try to get off the trail as fast as possible, hunker down? I guess it depends where you're at, right?
It depends where you're at. If it's near a planned day that you want to stop, then it's perfect. Mm-hmm. But if you're out on the trail, you need to find an exit quickly or you're going to suffer the consequences of the weather.
What's a planned 0 day?
A planned 0 day is when you decide to give your body a break from the trail. So you usually go off and spend a couple of nights so you have a full day off the trail. There's also a day called a Nero day, which you go off trail, you resupply, and then you get back on trail the same day.
The pack that you carry, what is the weight of that you're hauling with you?
Well, I'm probably a little heavier than a lot of people, but my heaviest weight so far has been about 44 pounds.
Wow.
And everything, I mean, from clothes to food is strategically placed in that pack.
Right. Everything has its place in the pack.
You've got a little break here in Tehachapi. Now, I know the post office, you can send things ahead. And do they still hold the things like here at our post office, where if you sent a package for if you needed to resupply and you've got that, whether you've got a support system or you sent it yourself, that you were able to send it here and then you can pick it up?
Yes, that's correct. The post office generally will hold it for up to 2 weeks. Sometimes they do it longer. Just probably depends on what kind of storage space they have available. And sometimes you can, if you don't need the package where you mail it to, you can bounce it ahead to another post office.
Yeah, that was what we were talking about that last night. I mean, people, maybe they get to Tehachapi and they're like, you know what, I'm doing pretty well on whatever supplies. The post office will forward that on ahead to the next stop, and then they don't charge them again to do that. So it's ready for them at the next potential postage stop.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Gives a little bit of flexibility. What is the, as you sort of have planned your journey, we talked in the past about miles per day. Is there, you have a goal and you also have a timeline in which you've got to get certain spots or permits not going to be valid anymore. So you got that sort of weighing on your mind too, don't you?
Yes. I originally made a schedule out, which just in the beginning, initially, I wanted to try to average 17 miles per day. Right now, I'm probably a week behind my original schedule. But I also built in a 3-week delay once I get to Kennedy Meadows just to wait for snow to melt. So if I can get on the trail through the Sierras before that, then I can probably catch up on my schedule. Some days, my shortest day hiking has been 9.5 miles. My longest has been over 20, but my average is coming up close to the 17 on the days that I actually hike.
Yeah. You know, and you brought up the snow piece, and I know the weather is varied. We mentioned weather, but it's varied so much so you've still got sections coming up, potential snow still, or you've been through sections already where you had to put, ice cleats on to get through. I mean, so you got to be prepared for all that stuff, huh?
Yes, sir. Snowstorms can happen in the Sierras, even in July and August.
Yeah.
So you need to be prepared, for the weather with your clothing.
And I think you mentioned that the rangers control both the northbound and southbound traffic in order that way there's not too many people, especially in that sort of risky Sierra Pass area. There's not too many people at once. Is that right?
Right. From March 1st until May 31st, there are 50 permits issued per day going northbound. And starting, I believe, June, there are issued 15 permits per day southbound from Canada.
That was news to me. I just thought, well, it's a Pacific Crest Trail. Like you can just go hike it. But there's a pretty robust permit process to be able to do and attempt something you're attempting. What's that like?
The end of last year and in January, there's 2 opportunities to request a long through hike permit. There are 35 issued on the first date going northbound, and then in January they issue 15 more going northbound. And so you just have to wait in line for your turn when you get your chance to request the date.
And they give you a start date, right? I mean, you had a start date when they said, okay.
Yes, you can select your date as long as it's not already filled up.
I want to get into a little bit on the charity side of this piece. I mean, you talked about Team World Vision. How can people support your cause and support your efforts to complete this journey for charity?
Okay, one, you can pray for me for my safety while I'm on the trail. There are days where it's very discouraging to be on the trail just because of how difficult it is at times, weather conditions. One thing that's encouraging is when I get a notification through my email that someone donated to me. That kind of perks me up a little bit because I know every $50 that are donated for the clean water will provide water for life to one person.
How can they support and get you that, make those donations?
teamworldvision.org/participant/PCT Waterboy.
There you go.
Because you're Waterboy. That's your trail name. Now, how do you get a trail name?
Well, normally people that you're hiking with on the trail will give you that name based on something you said or something that happened on the trail. In my case, this name was given to me by my son last year, and I thought it was appropriate based on why I'm hiking the trail. So I went with Waterboy, which I think it was kind of a pun from him because of the Adam Sandler movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Delivering high quality H2O.
Right.
And that's what your plan is
That's
to
right.
deliver high quality H2O to people in need.
That's correct.
I'll tell you that connection too, and I'm sure we were just discussing water this morning. I think your initial plan was to jump back on the trail, and then I'd mentioned this podcast, and then you were also waiting for a trail buddy to catch up, and so you decided to circle back into town. But you were already thinking ahead with water, right? You said, "I got 4 liters. Is that enough to get me to the next water stop?" And this is something that you're dealing with while you're hiking, but there are people who deal with this same problem every single day in their life because they have to hike, walk so far just to get water.
Yes, they will hike an average of 6 kilometers per day. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it will be done twice. It is done by children and by women. There are a lot of girls that do not get to go to school because they're out getting water for the family.
It's a full-time job.
And this water that they're collecting is dirty water. It has not been filtered. Because of the water that's available, children who make it to their 5th birthday are only 50% of those that were born. So half of their peers have already died because of waterborne diseases.
Yeah. No, and it's, that 6K piece, Team World Vision pushes that home a lot. They do a global 6K for water every year where it's kind of a virtual event. They encourage people to participate, and you kind of run that distance or walk that distance to sort of emulate the 6 kilometers that they'll walk a day for water. That distance kind of gets seared in your head because I know in the last basically 4 miles and change or so, which is kind of the 6 kilometer distance of the LA marathon, like I really started thinking about that. Like, okay, I'm in this is that last piece. This is something that these folks that we're helping do every single day. It really helped. It was kind of a driving factor, for me in the last little bit to get through it, thinking about the bigger picture and that global. And if I would complete that 6K, someone else is not going to have to do that ever again.
That's right.
So it really helps with that kind of put in perspective. How much do you think about water on the trail? I mean, we mentioned it this morning, but you always have to plan ahead on what you're carrying, how much you can carry, because you can't carry as much as you need, really. And so how much planning goes into just the water piece of your journey?
Well, the planning is kind of ongoing as you go. I have a app called Far Out, and it will give different waypoints along the way. It shows you where the gates are, where dirt roads are, where there's tent sites, where there's water, where there's potential water. A lot of the streams are seasonal streams, and there's no water available when you get to it. Mm-hmm. So you have to plan on those reliable sources if there are any. Like once I leave again this afternoon, I'll start at Highway 58 headed north, and the next reliable water is 16 miles away. So right now I'm carrying 4 liters of water. I have carried up to 6, and I can carry 7 if I really need to.
And you've got to, you think about all that stuff, you know, how much you can carry, how much you want to carry, because this is all weight on this 40 plus pound pack that you put on your back. So I think we chatted about it earlier about just kind of changing your perspective in life of what you actually need.
Right. Yeah. And every liter that you add on, you're adding on about 2 more pounds.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. What's the support been like? I know this is a very busy section of the trail in terms of, you know, the Southern California desert section. You're close to a lot of towns and cities and people that are familiar with PCT hikers, so there's a good support structure. What's that been like so far on your journey and the help, the aid, the refuel, resupply stuff that you've experienced with people?
Well, Southern California is a little bit easier in terms of the distance between towns and availability of resources. Usually within 3 or 4 days, you can pass through or near a town where you can resupply. As I get in the Sierras, I'm going to have a lot longer food carry because there aren't that many places through the Sierras to do that. There's only about 2 or 3 places, and that covers a section that's over 300 miles in length.
What's your experience been like here in Tehachapi since your stop over here? I know you've got to enjoy a stay with the Costellos.
I don't know if he enjoyed it, but he stayed there. Yeah, he had to deal with my crazy life.
You survived your encounter with the Costellos.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Right. What else here in Tehachapi are you going to take away and remember?
Well, it's kind of a unique situation for me because I used to own some property here. So I came over here on a regular basis to take care of some of my rental property that I used to own. The people here are very friendly. It was easy to get rides into and back out of town. When I was coming over here to visit my properties at times, it was kind of a nostalgic type of situation. I mean, it just was something I kind of enjoyed doing, even though, you know, I live 2.5 hours away. But I really enjoy the seasons, different seasons here when I come through.
I think it's great you have a past Tehachapi connection.
Yeah, no, when I picked him up yesterday, he said, hey, can we go by? We went and saw Lynetta Ashmore at Access Real Estate and she donated, and another contact at Four Seasons Realty. And I think Daryl even said, he goes, kind of odd having an out-of-towner know all this stuff about Tehachapi, right? Because it's not going to happen very often. Yeah. No, it was cool, and I think that the support. What can people do? I mean, Daryl, you're going to be on your way soon, but we're going to see some northbound hikers for several months, and then probably in the fall we might catch some southbound hikers. What can people do to help out? I mean, what are some of the needs of these hikers on this wild adventure? Well, I would say the first thing to do is contact the local trail angels and see what they need as far as resources. I know some of them will bring out water caches in certain locations, so they need to purchase water to provide if they don't fill it up out of their tap at home. A lot of them provide snacks at these trailheads and different water cache locations. People need rides into town and back out to the trail after they've left town. So that's the main help that we need on the trail as hikers. And it was last night you had a chance to get off the trail and sleep in a bed that wasn't on the ground, and he had a fantastic meal prepared for him. I don't say so myself.
Right. I got the largest T-bone steak.
I cooked T-bone steaks, and I gave him the largest one because we talked about calories. I mean, Daryl's not a big guy, and he needs as many calories as possible. He's losing weight on the trail. And so I gave him this giant T-bone steak, and he said, what do you think? You think a little guy like me can finish it? I said, I would not be surprised. Absolutely hammered it because he needs those calories.
That's it. Protein up time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So far in the journey. So how many days in are you?
Today is actually the end of the week number 6.
So in the last 6 weeks, Any interesting encounters or stories, whether it's wildlife, it's people, or anything that's been just kind of jumps out and go, oh yeah, I remember that?
I think it's interesting, the people, other people that are hiking the trail along with me that I meet. There's a lot of Europeans on the trail. I've met people from Australia. Some people, there's one person I met that is a traveling nurse. Her name is Erin. She actually did a post about what I'm doing on her Instagram account. Things like that. It kind of causes a ripple effect as far as my support of the donation part of the clean water. So it's interesting to see how far it's going to go, once I get some more time in on the trail.
And I would encourage people to, I mean, in my fundraising with World Vision, I mean, even just you throw a few dollars at this thing and it all adds up. It really does. And again, that $50 number is critical because that will provide, water for a lifetime once they build that system in these developing nations. So yeah, it doesn't take, you don't have to think you have to give 100 or whatever. Just a few here and there makes a huge difference because that stuff adds up. And to your point earlier, Daryl, about getting those notifications, I think in one of my longer training runs, I did a live social media video and encouraged people to give. And I think I was like 16 miles that day or something. And you start to feel it mile 14, 15, and then you start seeing the notifications pop up. So-and-so donated, so-and-so donated. And that you get a whole new sort of, bit of energy that comes because of that generosity. So I'd encourage people to do that.
I want to mention something else. My wife is also supporting me logistically while I'm on this trail. So some of my resupplies will be mailed by her. She is updating a blog about my adventure on a weekly basis. She issued a challenge to people as far as donations for what I have remaining left to reach my goal. She's doing a visual with a jar of pennies. And for every penny that she puts in there, that means about $53. That will represent $53. And so that means about 2,000 pennies will complete my goal.
Sure.
As I travel this trail.
How can we follow the blog?
The blog itself, the address is pctwaterboy.blogspot.com.
Once this podcast goes out too, we'll send this on to your wife, and she can include this in the blog so people can hear it. Hopefully, continue to to donate to your cause. Okay. So we'll get the podcast machine going behind all this as well. But I was just fascinated with I've seen hikers through the city for a long time, and chatted with a few. But this is the first time I kind of took the role on of bringing someone into the house and giving them helping them a little bit. And so I was just kind of fascinated by your story, obviously our connection with World Vision, and then the dedication to complete this task. I can't imagine the loneliness on the trail. And then I think even when I dropped you off this morning, I thought, I wonder what Daryl thinks about all day when he's walking. I mean, how do you pass the time especially if you're on a segment where you're by yourself?
Well, a lot of people will listen to music, but I don't do that just because I don't think my battery life would last long enough.
Yeah.
If I did. For one, I'm thinking about where am I placing my foot? Am I going to twist my ankle? Am I going to slide down the slope? I'm constantly praying about my safety with my Lord. I'm thinking about family members, friends. I'm praying about people I know who are sick, some with fatal diseases. I'm just trying to get through the day. There are some days which are very discouraging. I had some about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I had a day like that. And I start to think, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And then I think about the reason, and it's because so other children and mothers won't have to walk for dirty water the distances that they have to. That's what keeps me going.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that safety aspect too. When you talk about especially on the section of the trail that are a little more dangerous, but just thinking about, hey, I got to make sure I don't. Because if you twist an ankle, roll an ankle, break something out in the middle of nowhere, that becomes a bigger issue.
It does.
So even just that mental, obviously there's the mental aspect because of the physical demands, but they're also thinking, assessing, evaluating the trail constantly. That's got to wear on your mind a little bit too on the mental side.
Right. Well, there was one day where that particular day I was talking about, I was coming down from Mount Baden-Powell. We got up to 9,400 foot elevation. There's all kinds of snow. You can't see the trail, so you're constantly looking at your GPS to make sure you're following the trail the way it's going. we carried our ice axe and our spikes to wear on our feet. And I was coming down from that and got out of the snow, but there was patches of snow further down, but I was in a dry section, so I didn't want to take my spikes off. So twice I caught my spikes on something and I fell straight forward, face first on the ground. And the second time I injured myself a couple of places. I decided then I'm going to take them off regardless of what's down below.
I'm kind of curious too. While I know you mentioned you have GPS. Is that like a satellite version? Because you probably don't have very much cell service out there.
That's correct. There's cell service and locations, but that won't really give you a direction to go. But I carry a Garmin Mini, I think it's Reach Mini, or I don't know. But anyway, I can look at that using my phone screen because they're paired together, and I can see where the trails are and where the waypoints are, what they are. There is a SOS button that you can hit if you get injured and you can't help yourself, and search and rescue will contact you and verify what your condition is, and then they'll come get you if that's what's needed.
What's it like to feel off the grid, if you will? Like, I remember hearing of someone they were gone doing some kind of an exploration for several weeks. They come back and there's a pandemic, and then, it's like where you step away, you're out there hiking in like maybe that 300-mile section where you're not really coming into contact with very many people. And then all of a sudden there's something that's occurred in the world. You have no idea. And then you come back into contact with people and do you find out, have you had any experience like that where you've gone, that really happened?
Well, no, I haven't had that experience, but every time I get back to civilization, I usually ask what's going on in Ukraine.
Yeah. Daryl asked me last night, and I'm thinking, good question. I gave him some update, but I hadn't seen on as much. But I thought to myself, yeah, gosh, he's been out of touch lately, and got to see we have him on our phones, we get alerts, that kind of stuff. We see it on websites we visit, whatever, and when you're not doing that, you're kind of behind the curve a little bit.
I really haven't watched TV for the past 6 weeks. But the first TV I've seen was last night at Corey's house with one of his kids' shows.
I told him, I said, well, the bad news is the kids can control the TV, and like he sat and watched nursery rhymes and Sonic the Hedgehog with my sons.
There you go.
I said, hey, the kids, they run the TV. I don't watch TV.
And then you realize that you're happy off the grid.
Yeah.
Right.
For now, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. So, Daryl, again, if people want to donate, they're going to go to
www.teamworldvision.org and participant/Waterboy. Yep.
And then
PCT Waterboy.
PCT Waterboy. We'll maybe put in the show notes too. Yeah. We can link that in there as well.
And then the blog is, again, it's going to be, was it PCT Waterboy?
Waterboy.blogspot.com. And Daryl's on Facebook as well, kind of charting the journey too. And I've been following him that way as well.
What's your handle on Facebook? Is it Daryl Bolton, or is Waterboy a part of that?
Daryl Bolton from Napomo, California.
There you go.
From Napomo. Okay, great. And you used to be a part of the fabric here in Tehachapi. How many years ago has it been since you've moved away and sold your properties?
Well, I never lived here. I just owned property and sold my property about 4 or 5 years ago.
So recent connections here in Tehachapi.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. And our TCT angel of the day was Corey Costello and family. So
I'm very, very far from the angels. There's people that do so much, that have their numbers out there publicly, and they're always, giving rides and stuff like that. So this was just, this was just to help out a Team World Vision brother, so to speak, and someone who's doing this for a really great cause. So I was happy to help for sure.
Well, Daryl, thank you for taking a few minutes to share your story, your journey, the travels, where you're off to. We appreciate it. It's nice to get that perspective of what it's like to come through town and, how you feel about, your stop here.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for coming back and seeing us. So now you got some making up to do. You got to get back on the road, so back on the trail and make up for it.
That's okay. It's a nice break.
There you go.
Daryl Bolton's been our guest today. He's hiking the PCT trail, 6 weeks into the journey, heading to Canada. Corey, is that going to be in your future?
I don't have that kind of time. Maybe when I grow up and retire like Daryl, maybe when I have that kind of time. but not in the near future.
I want you to try a small section.
Yeah, that's good. I have walked on a small section technically because I've hunted off of it, but I really wasn't hiking it.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, we appreciate your time here on Tehachapi. If you'd like to find out more about Daryl's journey, if there's something you'd like to send to us as far as a question or something, get it to us and we'll get it to his wife so that way she can get it to Daryl and continue the conversation, follow his journey to Canada along the PCT. We appreciate the time here on Tehachapi, and we'll catch you again real soon. Thank you for joining us.
Tehachapi is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@tehachapicityhall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of Tehachapi.